Hi, I'm Keiko, and this is an animal transition conversations we usually don't get to have, and it's comforting information for heartbreaking situations. So, I've been an alpaca shepherdess since 2008, and I've had many, many animals that I love so much. And, with every animal that comes to your life, there's always a transition. And so I had to really come to terms with all of that because I love animals so much, and there's like no way I can live my life without them. And so with each transition, I learned quite a bit. And then I did start to really work with my own intuitive skills. And also, I did reading and trying to really just like wrap my head around, like, okay, what's the bigger picture here and how can I find peace? So, and this is the kind of conversation that, like, I really wish, I had or somebody talked to me about before or when I was younger. But it's just something that, it's a hard topic. It really is. Like, I'm creating this whole transition series. I've been trying to make little meditations and things for this channel and hoping that it's really helpful. But it's been honestly a bit of a it's been challenging because it is heavy, and I've been kind of, it's been taking a lot longer for me to kind of get through each one. And I do put my heart and soul into each creation, and I do my very best. But I woke up the other day going, okay, this is something I really, really wanted. So I'm just creating a conversation that I wish I had. And I did make a lot of notes so that I can cover some of the important things. Um, that I have learned through all of my experiences. And so I have alpacas. So I've had alpaca transitions. We did have a rescue horse, older senior rescue horse, and she has transitioned. We have many dogs, and we have livestock guardian dogs that we have adopted, and some of the ones we've adopted were older. And so um, the time they spent with us is shorter, and we usually have had probably like three, four, let me see, I'm trying to remember, 4 to 5 dogs usually at a time. So if somebody transitions, then we wait for the right dog to show up in our life again. But we generally have had a steady stream of animals or dogs that we adopt. And we also have cats. We also had a bunny. We also have a lot of birds. So there's quite a bit. And yeah, so honestly, by sharing these stories, I'm just really hoping that you'll find comfort because that's what we're always looking for, right? Because transitions are hard. They are one of the hardest things. Um, yes. And also just please take only what resonates and leave the rest. And the most important thing is to like really always honor your deeper knowing above all else. So one very important thing I want to say from the very beginning is that there is no one other than you who love your animal, know your animal, like you're it. Okay. So even if I'm intuitive and I can pick things up, I don't know your animal like you do. Never. And as smart and talented as many vets are, they don't know your animal like you do. And that's the absolute truth. And that is something that I have experienced over and over. Like we've had really brilliant, beautiful, amazing vets, and they're wonderful. I love them. But, at the end of the day, how many hours or even minutes has the vet spent with your animal? And even though they're a professional and they can see certain things, many things do not show up on lab tests, blood work, or things that they can see. But you know when something's off. You know when something is even a little bit, like they may not have any actual physical symptoms that a vet can detect, but you know way before something's wrong, something's off energetically because you're so in tune with your own animal and you love them. You have, you have all the vested interest that your animal gets the best care and that you're their best guardian. So I want that to be very clear. So, as good as any intuitive or animal communicator or vets, anybody could be, you are going to be the expert on your beloved animal. So always trust what you feel deep inside and don't ever second guess that. So that's what I want to say first. Okay. Um, Okay, so some of the really important things that I have learned. So our animals love us so, so, so very much. They do not want us to suffer. They also don't want us to regret our decisions, and they also don't want us to feel guilty for anything throughout their life. They know that we've done our best within the situations at all times. We may have made mistakes, but they get it. They really do because they love us so much. And they don't hold any of that. Like we may remember like, "Oh my God, back at that time when I did X, Y, and Z. Oh, like if I knew better or if I had more patience or da 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 da." Okay. Our animals don't think like that. They know that we did the best within the capacity we had at that time, and they're totally okay with that. They love us anyway. Okay. Um, Now, as far as the timing of the transition, um, like we may feel that like the timing wasn't right and stuff, but like again, it is the right time whenever and however it unfolds because they do play a part in it as well and they guide us along to their transition. Um, okay, yeah. And also like, each animal comes to us at a specific time in our life and they know what we're going through and what we may be going through. Um, And so like, I always think back like, oh my gosh, like, 20 years ago, you know, my first dog, like if I knew what I knew now, like all things would be so different. But that specific dog came into my life at that time to help me evolve and be part of the growth process that allowed me to be who I am today. So, so again, don't worry so much, especially how our animals perceive these situations. They just love us for everything, for all our faults, or for our perceived faults and mistakes that we think we may have made. They don't see it like that. Okay, let me see. Okay, yes. So each animal, I'm just going to read it so I don't forget and talk about it. Each animal is a beautiful, unique being meant to come to us at the exact time they arrive and leave as well, when they have completed their mission with us. So this is something that's come up quite a few times. Like when, in our minds, we want them to live a full, maxed long life and be with us the whole time. And then, if they do that and they, you know, pass due to old age, we feel like, okay, that's nice and complete. Okay, for us, that feels nice and complete. And um, I have a little cat meowing and coming in. I have a big dog, a little dog, and then there's a cat walking in. So it's always quite the place. So sorry, I lost my train of thought for a moment there. Okay, I remember now. Okay, um, when they have a full life, we feel good, but like sometimes we forget that the animals come to us because they have a specific mission, and for them, they have their own specific mission, either to support us in a certain way or for them to learn and experience certain things. So it can be quite a variety of reasons. But when we have an animal that might be only with us for 2 years and is young and transitions, like that can be pretty hard until and to really understand. And I had a situation like that where We adopted a dog that we're pretty sure was abused and starved. And like we kind of sense like immediately like there was a kind of an underlying weakness. Like, she was a good, great, amazing livestock guardian dog, but like almost from the day we got her and she was still pretty young, I wanted to retire her because I think I just could sense that, there was something. And she really taught us what a livestock guardian dog. She was one of our first livestock guardian dogs, and she really taught us what they're capable of and just the amazingness of all of that. And I think she was with us for about 2 years or so, and she kind of looked like she was really off, and we're like, something's not right. And my husband and I were kind of like, it felt pretty big because she just kind of was very quiet and kind of, I think, you guys can sense that, something's really different. But like she wasn't really showing anything necessarily prior to that. So we took her to the vet, and she was kind of scared of a lot of people. So we took her to the vet lady that she did meet before, and they did different tests and stuff, and they couldn't find anything. And they asked, like, well, do you want to leave her at the vet office for I think like an IV transfusion? And I knew that would be really stressful for her. And the vet was so amazing because she had been to our farm, and she was like, I don't think you're going to want that, but just offering. And I said, yeah, I'm going to take her home because, it would just stress her out to be here, and I want to be with her. And we kind of sensed something was like, even though it wasn't coming up in tests, something was really wrong. Um, but she wasn't showing any massive signs of pain, or like she wasn't even showing any signs. I mean, it was just really kind of like everything slowed down. So we brought her home, just loved on her, and we kept her really close to us and watched her. And she quietly passed the next day on her own. And that really, I mean, I was so relieved that I had taken her to the vet, because like if I didn't and she passed, I would have been like, oh my God, what did I miss? And even though again, maybe that could have been her plan if I didn't, right? So like we can't really go back and change stuff. But anyway, luckily for that time for myself, we did take her to the vet, and the vet didn't see anything. And she really quietly passed, like she just left. And so she was only with us for 2 years, but she really taught us what a livestock guardian dog was capable of. And she was just an absolutely sweet, amazing dog. And, she fulfilled her mission. I think she felt the love, the unconditional love that we had for her. We had another big guardian dog too, and he loved on her too. And they got along. They were so sweet together. And so she fulfilled her job of teaching us what a guardian dog was capable of, as well as she was able to receive so much love that, she couldn't do any wrong. So even though it was really short and it was really hard, we do have to remember that some dogs are here with us for a very short time, and that's not our fault, and it is sometimes by their choice. And she completed her mission, and she was ready to go. So Um, yeah, so that was something that was really important. I'm not gonna lie, when I've had my first dog lived almost 17 years. I had him since he was a puppy, and I got him when he was like 12, when I was 12 years old. And so like, it was a good thing that he lived as long as he did, because I didn't have the capacity to handle what I can now. But he stayed with me, and he was loved. Everything was, always, it was always about him. And he slowed down, and it was age. And then he passed in my arms, at home, actually. So that felt very complete. I mean, the grief was still the same, like, even though it's coming, forget it, right? Like that was my first big loss. So I was a mess. I was a total mess, okay? Even though I knew it was coming and it was about as gentle for me as it could be. So, okay. Okay, so this one I think I did mention at the very beginning. So you know your animal best. So always, always, always trust your own deeper knowing. You know what their normal behavior is. You know when they're slightly off. You know if they look sad or something doesn't feel right. And so, yeah, don't second guess yourself and override it with logic and reason when you have a gut knowing. Very important. So, sorry, repeating it again. Okay. Um, this is a big one. So, my understanding and perception of death was um, kind of really like I got so much help in this one very heartbreaking situation. So we had a beautiful alpaca named Myelina, and I actually talk about this in one of the videos in the transition series, because it was such a profound experience. And also about 7 8 years ago when it happened, I did maybe a few weeks after it happened, I did create a video on my farm channel just because it was such a message that changed how I was able to operate from that point, especially regarding transitions. And it gave me so much comfort, to be honest. And so what had happened was, without getting too much into the detail, because I do have a different video on that one. Um, so Myelina was about 10 years old. She was born on my farm, one of the first babies that I got to, witness being born and interact with. And so, long story short, there's a lot of commotion. I went outside and she had shattered. Well, at that point, I didn't know it was shattered, but she had broken her leg and she was on the ground. And I basically was able to get her into a stable state. And so I was able to basically splint her leg and get her enough homeopathics to get her to be able to stand up. And we always test with food to see where they are, and she was eating. And so I thought, oh my gosh, I have, maybe this isn't as bad as I think it is, and maybe we can cast it and take care of her at home. Well, anyway, so once I got her stabilized, I called the vet and I said, hey, I need you to come here and help me here. It was late at night, of course. And she said, well, if she's eating, I'll come to you in the morning. So she comes in the morning with her x-ray, and she takes, the splint and everything off. And she goes, okay, let me take a look. She gets an x-ray and she goes, it's shattered. Like, it's not like a clean break. It's like everything's everywhere. And she goes, we can't we can't cast it here, and it's not like a home care thing. He goes, it's going to be pretty extensive surgery, some hospitalization probably, and then once she comes home she's going to be stalled for about 6 months, and she can't go graze with her friends on the pasture. And I was like, okay, that doesn't sound good. So I'm like, okay, any other good options? Like always, I'm kind of like looking for other ideas or options. And I'm like, okay, is there something else that might be more helpful or something? And she goes, well, the other option is euthanasia. And okay, that's when my heart just like sank. I was like, I had no words. That I was not expecting that. And so I yeah, I just kind of went like frozen, like yeah, and she goes, okay, well, I'm gonna give you a few minutes to think about it because you can't leave her like this, so you're gonna have to make a decision. And I mean, she was so great. Okay, so the vet, she was amazing, and she was super wonderful. Okay, I mean, granted, I don't remember too much about everything, but she was a beautiful, loving person. Okay, so I'm going, oh my God, like I have to make a decision. Like, but like I didn't want either one of the decisions for her or for me. So I don't know what I was thinking. You're kind of in that shock state. You're not thinking very clearly. So I just said, okay, just kind of like, I think I just sort of said it out loud, like Alina was right in front of me. She had heard all the conversation, knew what was going on. And I just said, oh my God, Alina, like, what do I do? What do I do? And I don't really know what I was expecting. Like, like I'm just like, oh my God, what do I do? It's a big decision. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what to do, what to do. Well, what should I do? And the most miraculous thing was all of a sudden I just felt so calm. And I was like, okay, not expecting that. And I just felt this absolute calm energy come over me. And now that shocked me already. And then in my mind's eye or mind's ear, I don't know, right? I heard this like something along the lines of like, we perceived death differently, and I could just as easily come back as a baby alpaca. And I went, huh? And it took me a minute to process because like even at that point I was still in denial, right? So I kind of had to take a moment to process. And first, of course, I'm going, okay, have I gone crazy again? Um, but like the reason why I trusted this message was the energy that it came with. It was so calm and peaceful. And trust me, I was not in that state. I was just like, ooh. And when I felt that calmness, I was like, wow, oh my God. And then it dawned on me, okay, she's like, I translated that, what she said, to mean, well, like, I don't I don't want to stay here with, painful surgery and then stuck in a stall without my friends for 6 months, and that for her, she didn't have that kind of attachment to life that, we humans usually have, right? Um, and so that's when I realized like, okay, like, for my sake, I might want her here because I don't want to let her go, but like she doesn't want that. And even if, okay, so it was an expensive surgery, I'm not gonna lie. It was very expensive surgery. But even assuming that we could have figured out how to work with the money part. Um, and again, okay, let me also add too, I have sense that the animals do not want us in massive financial struggle either. Okay. So that's another part as well. But I was kind of like, okay, assuming we could figure out and take care of the expense part of it, you know, it was still like she just had such a different perception of life and what is a good life in a healthy body. And so, yeah, yeah, that really was a pivotal kind of moment that um has really stuck with me, and also like the love and the gentleness that it came with, the message came with, like that is kind of like more what I remember. And I mean, of course, Mylena and I, we both miss each other very much, but we know that we made the right decision and we did let her go. Um, yeah. Yeah. And again, like, I'm just gonna say too, every situation is very different. So like, yeah, I did make a note of that. Let me just double check. So like, if Alina, she was an alpaca, but if she's a dog, let's say a little dog, like I probably would have done surgery because, the dog wouldn't care being stuck next to me for 6 months and just being fully babied and carried around, right? So again, like, but Alina was a very big alpaca. She's probably about 160 pounds or so with long legs. And, if she couldn't get up, it would have been really hard to do that for her as well. So it's obviously always going to be case by case and situation by situation. Um, but I think being able to be in a space where we're asking, okay, well, what's the highest good for all involved, especially the animal? And I think that's where you'll be able to really feel the answer in your gut. What feels good, what feels right, what feels doable. So, okay. These are big ones, aren't they? Okay. Let's see. Some animals. Oh, okay. So here's just some other stuff like, because we've had so many and so some animals, okay, so I'm just checking my notes and reading my notes so that I don't miss stuff. Some animals will transition on their own, and some prefer some prefer or need veterinary help to transition. Um, and then let's see, animals are ready to go, and some will cling on until the last minute. So, um, yeah, and again, like, a lot of times it's like we just kind of almost want the animal to go on their own without suffering and that we don't have to make these hard decisions. Um, but it truly is a gift to be able to make these decisions, especially if our animals are suffering or struggling. Um, and well, you know what? Let me give you a few examples. So Tahoe, this is a good one. Okay, so Tahoe was one of our main herd sires. He's an alpaca, and oh my gosh, we still have like 50% of the herd is like his babies because he has such a fabulous personality, great fleece and everything. So we just wanted all of all the babies to be his babies. Um, but he came to our farm and he was maybe about 3 years old, and then he was just absolutely loved, sweet, sweet, sweet guy. Got to do his mission and have a lot of babies on our farm. He had a very nice, long, natural life, no illnesses, just doing great overall. But then when you start getting older, they kind of lose their way and they're skinny but they're still eating and stuff. And then like towards the end, like we always take a walk to the pasture and they'd be walking different places. And then like, we see him like just laying down. We're like, oh my God, Tahoe died. And then we run over there. He's like, no, he just lifted his head like, no. Like, is he practicing? What's going on? So anyway, we had a couple of those where we kind of and then ran and then he was like, still here. But it was kind of like we knew it was eventually coming. He was doing fabulous, like, just other than being old and skinny. Um, and then like one day it was a little later than usual, and then he was still kind of further, like everybody else had gone back to the barn, but he was still like out a little bit further than usual, and he was laying there and we're like, oh hey Tahoe, you don't look so good. Can we help you up? And so we helped him up, and then we said, we had to still go check the rest of the pasture. So he said, will we come back? If you need help, we'll help you walk back to the barn. And then by the time we walked back, he had slowly walked back and towards the barn, and then he was lying in the poop pile. So alpacas have a community poop pile, but also that was a sign, like a lot, like, okay, tonight's the night I'm leaving. And so he was laying in the poop pile. And I'm like, Tahoe, you're leaving us tonight, huh? He was just like, kind of, like we just kind of could sense that was it. So we talked to him for a little bit and we thanked him. And then we just let him be because he looked incredibly comfortable. It looked like it was his choice. And then in the morning, I went to check on him again, knowing that he would be gone or his spirit would be gone. And I look at his face, and he really looked like he was smiling. It was like the most interesting experience. He just kind of had this very peaceful, smiling face, and he just probably left his body in the middle of the night. So, those are the ones that we always want and wish that every single animal did that. But yeah, not always the case. We had a guardian dog that he was about maybe 10 or 11, and we could tell he was clearly in distress. So, we had to call the vet immediately and let him go. Um, there was also Tommy, who was also a guardian dog, and he kind of had symptoms of degenerative myelopathy or so, where he really could had a harder time getting up, and with a big dog like that, that's pretty hard. But we were able to utilize some homeopathics and stuff, and he was able to get up, although he was getting really wobbly and kind of a little like couldn't really feel his legs very well. But he was able to kind of go for about almost a year after he kind of started to have a harder time getting up, and but his head was still fully intact, um, which is sometimes hard, right, with big dogs. Um, so anyway, but he was getting older and skinnier and stuff. And then one day, he was laying down and he had kind of leaked a big one. And I was like, oh, it's okay. I got this. I always talk to my animals. I'm like, I got this. I'm gonna clean it and it's no problem, no worries. And he was a really smart dog too, high IQ dog. And he kind of looks at, so he's laying down, he kind of looks at me like, no, do you think I really want to live like this? Like, this is kind of a sign to show you, like, I'm kind of like okay with this being all done. Like, this is too much. And it was just like, it was a weird knowing, like, that's what he was kind of trying to communicate to me, right? And so I was like, you're right. Like, you've kept going for as long as you could, but you're probably like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. I'm tired of this too. So then we, called the vet and he transitioned as well. One more interesting one. Let's see. Okay, so I had a little Chihuahua, Coda, and he absolutely did not like the vet at all. Like it was like, no. And he was almost, well, he was adopted, so he was probably about a year old. I had probably had him for almost 17 years. And he was like this absolute little love and always on my lap, always next to me, like always in my field. And he was determined to stay until the very last minute. He was not gonna leave a minute sooner. And if I had called the vet, he probably would have been incredibly angry at me, at the vet, everybody, and it would have been really stressful. So it was a little hard because a natural transition, can you, so with as many transitions we had some that were natural that were, like Tahoe, which was a little bit more of a slower thing. Sometimes they go down, maybe they'll suddenly shift and then like in 3 days they sort of wind their body down and then they transition. Um, but it's not always an exact time and every animal's very different, to be honest. And so Coda, as he was going, like I could tell, okay, he's, getting ready to transition, but he was just like, Mom, I love you. I must be here. And sometimes it's our attachment to our animals that keeps them there. But I can tell you, as much as I loved him and wanted him here, I was like, it's okay. You can go because I can see your, it's like physically it's hard, you can see. And he was just kind of already so old. And I was like, it's okay, you can go. I love you. I'm your soul, spirit, everything's with me always. But he was just like, no, I'm staying. And and it was so stressful for me that I was throwing up. So um but in the middle of the night that I was with him, he was like, okay, I'm ready. And I was kind of like petting him and I saw him sort of like almost like he was like like moving. And then I just saw him leave his body and I was like, wow, wow, that was just amazing. Like, so I was there with him and that's what he wanted. So it was honestly a little bit stressful for me. But I know he would have been angry and, having been with him for like 17 years, it's like if I had tried to cut his life a minute short with a vet, I don't know. I don't know. That might be one of those cases where he wouldn't forgive me. So, um, yeah, so that, um, mm, so I don't know if this is kind of related or not, but I just feel like throwing this in here. So, um, with this many animals and also just kind of like how we believe certain things, right? Like our own belief system. So my husband and I have always had a conversation about, okay, if we have certain situations, like to what extreme will we take it? Like, and we both kind of agree we don't want to take extreme remedies or situations. Like, so for instance, we've had we've had like preemies that were just quite compromised that, you know, if you intervene too much, you're just going to prolong the inevitable and they're gonna, it's just going to be one medical experience after another. And so in cases like that, if they're not struggling, then we allow we just spend time with them and be with them and tell them how much we appreciate their presence and whatnot. Um, we've also had a case where, a Crea was born, Crea's an alpaca baby, was born full term, but it seemed like it struggled at the very beginning. And so, we had the vet come and do like I think a camelid plasma transfer or something. And so, we definitely take interventions that we feel are beneficial and something for like just good for all in all ways, not to prolong suffering but to remedy the situation. But there are situations like a relatively compromised preemie that, yeah, you could do medical interventions, but you know for prolonging potentially the suffering or what. So but again, this is you and your animal and how you feel. Like, if you feel like every measure needs to be taken, then that's okay. That's your experience. And the animals that come to you sign up for that, right? So, but having some level of clarity on your position on that may also be important because then, and you want to have that position before a situation arises. Because when you're put under extreme situations, it's not very easy to make clear-headed decisions. Um, yeah, you know what? I'll share one other one because this would fall into that category. So this was hard. Like I still kind of struggle with this one too. We had a beautiful, like, oh my gosh, he was like the cutest. He had a little teddy bear face. He was a little alpaca baby. Like, oh my gosh, the cutest. Like my husband and I were just like, oh, cutest baby ever on the farm. And he was about 4 weeks and he had what it looked like he had broken his leg as well. Now he was a super cute jumpy baby, so he was like boink, 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 and he was doing all sorts of acrobatics. And so we're not quite sure, but we saw him, kind of pulling his leg in a limpy way. And um, interestingly enough, when I didn't touch it because I didn't want to hurt him, but like just, if this was the leg, I kind of went like this and just sort of slid my hand and I almost threw up. So I was like, okay, this doesn't feel good. Um, and it turns out that he broke it in a really bad spot where there was like nothing to um like anchor to. Anyway, since he was so young, it was like we were very tempted to take more extreme measures than we would. But, he's a little boy, very active, it's like it just wouldn't, you know, and when we looked at the x-ray, it was just one of those where now the the kind of like the university type of hospital, they were like, oh, well, we can definitely try. Um, but my two, like one was a mobile vet and one was a farm vet that I trust incredibly a lot. They were like, there's nothing to anchor it to. And I'm like, I know, I see it too. And I'm like, I can't put our baby through that. And so, again, but that one would have been a really tempting one to take extreme measures. Um, we did not, and it was a really hard situation because he was so young and he was so freaking cute. Oh my God. Yeah. So yes. Okay. So let me see. Number six. Okay. So yeah, this is a good one too. Important. If the situation becomes overwhelming for you, it's okay to let your beloved animals transition. They don't want you to struggle and suffer, and they don't have the kind of attachment most of us humans have to the physical body and life. You are not letting them down or abandoning them. They'll be right back with you in spirit. So again, now with all of this, you got to go with your gut, but I'm just kind of giving you various situations and various sort of experiences I've had so that you can kind of honor your own, if that makes sense. like, okay, for Coda, it did get overwhelming, but I knew I couldn't, call the vet, I was just like, there's no way I could do that with him. Um, it, with obviously the broken bone on my baby, you know, there really wasn't anything we could do at that point after we had the x-ray and, various vets kind of weighing in on the situation for us. It was just, yeah, that one was very overwhelming. So, um, but if there are situations where you're kind of at a loss and, you know, the reason you're not allowing them to transition or choosing to transition is because you feel guilty, like you haven't done enough. Like they don't. The animals, every time I have just not found the animals are kind of like, it's okay. We can go. It's not that big of a deal for us. So yeah, they really do live in that present moment and understand that cycle, the life and death cycle. It's just so different from, our attachments to being alive in our physical body. Okay. Oh, quality of life decision. Okay, this is also a really important one. So Eve was our rescue horse, a smaller horse, I think, and very old senior horse that we adopted. And we could tell there was something like happening with her mammary tumor ish, or we were kind of like something doesn't look right. So we called our mobile vet over, farm vet, and we said, what do you think? And he was like, yeah, that's probably a mammary tumor. I mean, you could get her, she was already quite old. He's like, well, you could get surgery or just, let her be happy, live her life, and then when things shift, give me a call before it's like too far progressed. And so because she was much older and again, surgery's hard on the body and especially for an older animal. And so we were like, okay, you know what? And okay, and since it was a tumor, we figured, the sweet feed would feed the tumor and not like ideal, but she was a formerly starved horse. So, you're looking at quality of life here. And so, do we want her to live a little bit longer by withholding the sugar so that her tumor won't go, progress? Or should we just let her have what she loves and be happy? And then when it's time, just let her go. So my husband and I talked about this and we were like, like she's got to enjoy whatever time she's got. She's already had a challenging life earlier in her life. Let's just spoil her rotten as we would and do. And let's just give her all the sweet fees she wants. And if, once it progresses, let's call the vet and then she can be free. So that's what we did because we felt that the quality of life, her life, um, was more important at that point, especially with her age. And it was quite interesting because we just kept feeding her what she loved and she was so happy and gave her lots of treats. And then one day I could tell like it wasn't too like, like she wasn't like, on the ground or anything, but she was walking a little funny. She looked a little stiff. And I was like, okay, something just changed in her body. And we called the vet and but she was still able to walk. So she kind of walked and we gave her all her favorite treats and everything. And then when the vet did their, I think they do like kind of a sedation or muscle relaxant or something first. And then they do the one that stops their heart or I can't remember exactly, but they do it incredibly humanely and in a beautiful, peaceful way. So it's not scary or stressful. Um, once it hit, she was like, boom, like I could feel her spirit just flying out of her body and like, yes, I'm free. And that was like, oh wow, like there was no resistance, no hesitation. She just like flew. And I was like, wow. that actually gave me relief. And it was like, okay, we definitely, did the right thing. And she was happy till the last minute. She was still not so compromised that, she was sitting in her poop or something like that. So, um, sometimes I think it's important to just kind of weigh the options of, okay, yes, it may lead to a slightly earlier, transition, but looking at the history and how you feel, what feels right, what feels best for this specific beloved animal. So that was that. Mm, okay. So sometimes an animal will definitely stay longer if they are worried about us. So um I'm pretty sure my first dog was like that because I was, even though I knew it was coming, I was struggling quite a bit. And I think he stayed about as long as he possibly physically could. And again, like I'm kind of like, oh my God, if I knew what I knew now, I'd do things differently. Okay. He knew how I was when I was younger, and he had the capacity and patience and the yeah, just the ability to allow me to evolve and grow. Um, so now what I do is I actually will let them know when I feel like they are getting closer to their time or I see that they're having some other challenges. I will just say, I love you. If it's time for you to go, don't worry about me. I'm going to be okay. And we'll always stay connected heart to heart in spirit. And um, there's nothing for you to worry or hold on to. But if you can stay for as long as you want, you can stay and I will love you and give you all the treats or whatever. So I think clearly letting them know your heart, your intention, I feel has been really helpful and important. Now, if you are having a hard time letting go, that's okay too. I mean, I was, I was, and every animal's different too, right? So it's okay. You can be honest with your animal and just say, I am struggling. I will miss you, but I'm gonna find a way to be okay. So I don't want you to worry or suffer and stay any longer than you need to, for my sake. And I think that's something all animal lovers can say, even if we're kind of like, ugh. Okay. So let me see. Just want to make sure they, yeah, yeah. I also mentioned in here that, if you're struggling with the thought of their transition, having a hard time, they will give you the time you need within their power to support you. Um, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. And you can always ask them when you're talking to them, I love to have some signs and messages from across the Rainbow Bridge, when you're safely over there. And I will say, my first dog, because I was such a mess, sent me so many signs and messages once he crossed over. Now, again, he was my first dog, and so I really didn't know what I know now. And so, okay, just to give you some fun little things that they can do for you. I had a lot of dreams. Okay, so I had quite a few dreams where I see him in my dream and I'd be like I forgot to like feed him something like that, or I forgot to give him his medicine or something like that. And then I would hear him say, "Don't worry, I'm already being taken care of. I'm in good hands. I'm being taken care of." And I was like, "Oh, oh, okay." Um, and then another one was where he basically passed the baton onto my new dog. So I was kind of going crazy um and in the grief, I was just like, ah. And so we got a puppy pretty quickly. And Honey was my first dog. He basically was showing me in the dream, like he passed the baton on to this new puppy. And so he's like, I've done my job. Move on. Get with the program here. And yeah, it was tough love. Like I was kind of expecting more of like this sympathy, empathy, I'm still okay, mom, you're okay. No, he's like, I've done my job. I've helped you for many years. It's okay. You can move on. I'm okay. Um, he did send me a penny from heaven with the year that I met my husband and many great friends. So that was really cool. I looked at the penny. I was like, oh my gosh, this year. Um, one other really cool thing was um my friend came over with some beautiful flowers. So actually it was, yeah, my friend came with flowers, and there was one flower that had kind of bent and broke, not fully broken, but it kind of bent over. And so I asked my mom, like, can you grab me scissors because I was going to trim it. And I was holding it, my friend was watching, and I mean, it wasn't that long. My mom got me the scissors and I was going to cut it, and this flower had healed. And I was like, but you could still see the little bent line that was there when it was bent. And I was like to my friend, I was like, did you see that? Like that was broken, right? Or bent. And she goes, yeah. It's like, okay, honey. So honey fixed my flower. So, they're quite powerful. They can do all sorts of cool stuff for you. Um, Yeah, and they can give like so back then I wasn't into numbers or anything, so I didn't know. But like, sometimes they can send you numbers that are important for you. Well, I guess yeah, the penny had the year that I met my husband. So they can send it in numbers or something that's meaningful, or you might see your clock and there might be their birthday number or when you adopted them or something like that. So they can send it to you. So just but ask for it. Ask for it and just allow it to come whenever it comes, what be it in dreams or any way it wants to show up. Okay. Okay, so I know you heard me mention this quite a few times, but since we are on a farm, we do have access to mobile vets, which that has been a lifesaver. So, um, in different cities, I think it may be a little different, but there are vets that will come to your house to euthanize and yeah, help you with your animals in those circumstances. And I found that to be so much easier, especially for me, like the humans. I think it's just so much easier. Um, for the animals, some will probably find it extra beneficial. Other ones probably like wouldn't care as much. So if it is an option, that's definitely an option that's much easier for you and probably even the animals so that you don't have to move them around if they're not feeling good. Um, yeah. So just something additional you can consider. Okay. So, so I want to wrap this up with what all of these transitions have taught me. And I haven't talked about all of them because there were more. Yeah. And I love all of our animals so much. Yeah, sometimes it's just like, yeah, just too much. Um, so, through all these transitions, what it's taught me is to be like really fully be in the present moment and love. Love our animals, love our family, love our friends, be fully, fully present because we don't know what tomorrow brings. And with, sure, okay, if we have 17 years with one animal, like, what a gift, what a gift. I'm just gonna love him hard every single day. But some animals, they're gone after 2 years or something. And I just want to always make sure that I'm fully present for them and I give them all the love that I possibly can. Um, They are also incredible teachers. They're so wise and they teach us through so many different ways. Like, sometimes it's just pure patience, and sometimes they will show, imbalances in our physical body. My first dog actually, started showing thyroid problems, and shortly thereafter, I did too. But he had it first, and so that helped me understand more about the condition. So sometimes they'll mirror us. Yeah, let's see. And it also allows us to feel such deep emotions that sometimes, like, we just don't get those opportunities with, other situations. Um, okay, for me, this was huge. that the physical existence is only one aspect of our reality, and that there truly is an afterlife, a spiritual dimension where we are all connected. And well, even before I was like really into all of this stuff, I had a guinea pig. Oh, so cute, so cute. I rescued her. I had wanted a bird, and one day when I was in college, I just had this sense I needed to open the front door of this little apartment I was in. And I saw a cat run off. So I was like, oh, hey, kitty. And then all of a sudden I hear this off to the right side. I'm looking, there's a pig right outside in the bushes. I was like, and it, it was a formerly, I'm sure, domesticated. I was like, oh my gosh. And so back then that was my boyfriend, my husband, now my husband, obviously, but back in college we were boyfriend, or he was my boyfriend. So I was like, hey, I need help. So we got Squeaky, and yeah, so anyway, I had Squeaky for quite some time, cutest little guinea pig. But after she passed, oh, okay, in college, I went and would get like vegetables, like free vegetable scraps from this organic garden stand or something like that. I was out in Santa Barbara, so they had those. And so every time I come home and I put that in the fridge, and then, I'd open the fridge and give her, and I had it for quite a long time. And then like after we got actually, she was at my parents' house when she passed. So she passed before we got married. My husband and I got married. But after I moved, with my husband to our new place, every time I opened the fridge, I could hear her in the bedroom. And it's like, oh my gosh, she's still here. So, yeah. So, we'll hear things. And at first I was like, what? But I'm 100% sure she followed us, to the new place, and she loved that fridge opening because I had all these treats from the vegetable stands. So, yeah. Okay, so every animal that comes into our life, there's a resonance that calls them in at the exact right time, in the exact moment, in the exact time of your life, and everything. And they truly are gifts from the universe to be honored, cherished, and loved. And when it is time to go, it's all in divine timing and divinely orchestrated. So, all of those things are things that I have experienced and learned, and I just love them so much and appreciate, honor all the animals in our lives. So, I'm hoping that, some of these experiences, like that you got to hear today, um, kind of gives you a little bit more of like comfort and a like acceptance, or a deeper, maybe an acceptance of your own deeper knowing. Um, because these are heartbreaking situations, and sometimes, it's just like we question ourselves because we want to be the best for our animals, right? So anyway, hope you found this helpful, and I hope and send you so much love and peace and connection with your beloved animals.